Hi, I'm Mike Canberger with Tricky Fast Studios. In this series of videos, I'll be showing you how to build an endless runner in Cat Game Builder. Along the way, you'll learn about the player controller, UI data binding, animation parameters, building collectible items, and hazards. By the end of the series, you should have an endless runner that looks like this, except for with your own art, music, and sound effects. The art from this game is not included with Cat. Also, this tutorial uses Cat version 1.02, so make sure you have that version or later before attempting to replicate what you see. In this first video, we will go over setting up the level and the title screen. So let's set up the scene. In this scene, I have the main camera. It's set to orthographic because this is a two-dimensional game. We have the default light. We have the bunny character, which has a sprite renderer, an animator, a circle collider, and a rigid body 2D. You'll want to set these up according to your art. In my case, we're making a game about a bunny that runs and hops. Next, we have the level geometry. I've grouped it under this one game object. We have an empty game object here where we're going to place our hazards, another one for our goodies, and then we have all the background images and the foreground images for the ground, which have polygon colliders on them. Make sure there aren't any colliders on the background images because you don't want your runner to collide with them. We're just putting that on the ground. You can make additional platforms using regular colliders as well. Let's start by making the bunny a state machine. So we've added a state machine to it. Let's add some states. So we're going to add the ready state, which is going to be the title screen. We're going to add a running state, which is what will come up while you're playing. A dead state, which happens when you die. And a reset state to put everything back the way it was. So we're going to use the bunny to control the game state. So that means it's going to be in charge of turning the menus on and off, resetting everything back, and just keeping track of what state the game's in. We're also going to add a value holder because we need to keep track of the score. So let's come over here and add an integer value and rename that to score. Now let's go ahead and make the UI. Start by adding a canvas. And then under the canvas, add a normal text. This is going to be the title, so let's rename it. We want it to stay at the top. Let's adjust position here. And let's go grab the font. Set the size. We're going to call this game Bun Run. Make sure to set the vertical overflow to overflow so that we can actually see the text. And let's change the color to white. Now let's add a button. Let's call this the play button. Set the text to play. Make this a little bigger. Use our luckiest guy font here and make that bigger. Move it down a little. That it's centered. And let's also just make the button a different color. There we go. Now we're going to add another text, but this time it's going to be for the score, and we want to hook it up to cat. So we're going to use data binding. So instead of going under UI text, we're going to go under cat UI and then text. And we're going to call that score. And we're going to put that at the top center. And we're going to set the font again. We're going to default it to 0. Center that. Set the font size to 60. All right, now let's move on to the data binding. So when you add via the cat UI menu, it's going to add this data binding component as well. So the first thing we're going to need to change is this bind to. So by default, it binds to itself. And that's not what we want. We want to look at that variable, the score variable we put on the player, on the bunny here. So we're going to go player. For the text value, we're going to set that to that score. So we need to do owner, and then score. So what this is going to do is it's going to bind this text element directly to that variable. So anytime that value changes, this text element is going to update itself. Okay, and now let's just select all 3 of these and disable them. Okay, so let's set up the ready state. Start by adding some actions here. First, we want to add some set enabled actions. 3 of them to be precise. Then we want to add a player controller. We're going to add the player controller 2D. And then we're going to add a trigger for button trigger. Okay. And under the button trigger, we're going to add a change state action. Now let's go back through these and set them up. So all these enabled actions, they're going to deal with the UI. So we're going to enable the title text, the play button, and then we're going to make sure the score text is disabled because we don't want to show that in the title screen. So first thing is we're going to target the canvas on this one and then add a path and set that path to title. So the reason why we aren't just targeting the title directly is because it's disabled, and you can't target disabled game objects directly. You have to use some other means. In this case, we're targeting the parent and then using the path to set it. So we do want to enable it, and we want to revert on stop. That means that as soon as this state is done, it's going to go back to being disabled. So very similarly here, we're going to do the same thing with the button. And finally, for the score text, we actually just want to disable it. But once again, we're going to reference it by its parent. All right, now let's set up the player controller. We're going to set it to side scroll mode. And now we're going to turn on use 2D colliders. When you have use 2D colliders on, that means it's not going to use the default Unity character controller. And the reason for that is that character controller doesn't actually work with 2D colliders. So in Cat, we have our own character controller that does work with 2D colliders. So if you check that off, and then we just need to set the height, which is how far the thing should be off the ground. And that's it for the player controller. So over here to the button trigger, we want to target the play button over here. And it's disabled now, but by the time it gets to this trigger, it should be enabled. And then we want to change state, and that's going to be to the running state. And that's it for the ready state. Let's give it a try. Okay, so let's give this a try. So as you can see, the ready state's enabled, the bunny's sitting on the floor. And now, if we hit the play button, it goes into the running state, which there's no controller, so the bunny's just going to roll around like crazy. That's it for this video. In this video, you should have set up the scene, the runner character, and the UI. In the next video, we'll build the remaining states on the runner. I hope you found this video informative and useful. For more information on CAT and how it can help you prototype and build games faster, please visit trickyfast.com/cat. I'm Mike Hanfurger with TrickyFast Studios. Thanks for watching.